Dune Part 2 presentation. First part is just going to be like an introductory guide, things that you might need to know from Part 1 to go and enjoy Part 2. And then because I know a lot of people have already seen Part 2, I'll then move into some explanations about things that happen that people might have questions about. So quick recap of Part 1, Arrakis has been retaken by the Harkonnens. Pretty much all the Atreides have been wiped out except for Paul and Jessica, who have escaped into the desert and joined with the Fremen. The Fremen believe that Paul very well may be their Messiah or their Lisan al-Gaib. So first we have the Emperor. He believes his plan to get rid of the Atreides has worked, and now he's just trying to get everything back in order, particularly with spice production on Arrakis. His daughter, Princess Irulan, is a new character here in Part 2. She's a student of the Bene Gesserit, learning directly from the Reverend Mother. She's expected to be the Empress, so to take over for the Emperor when he dies, either directly or possibly by marrying someone from another great house. She also acts as a historian and is making a record of these events as they happen, and at this point she's unaware of the Emperor's role in the plot against the Atreides. So over here in House Harkonnen, the Baron also thinks his plan to take out the Atreides has worked, and now his sights are just set on securing Harkonnen power by getting spice production back up and by selecting a worthy successor. First movie we met Rabban, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. He's the nephew to the Baron, and he's put back in charge. He's like the governor of Arrakis. He's trying to get spice production back up, but the Fremen keep interrupting spice harvesting. He's not doing a great job, and he's also never been the Baron's favorite. That would be Fade Rautha, who is Robin's brother and the Baron's preferred nephew. Fade has been selected as the heir. He's the Na Baron. And on Fade's birthday, he has this sort of coming of age thing where he gets to have this huge celebration, and he fights in these gladiator games to demonstrate his ferocity, and a bunch of people from the Imperium are invited to come and watch. And one of those people that comes is Lady Margot Fenring, who happens to be a Bene Gesserit sister. Why are the Bene Gesserit monitoring Fade? Well, we need to kind of remember back from Part 1. The Reverend Mother is angry with Jessica that she has Paul instead of having a daughter. Jessica thinks she can bring about the Kwisatz Haderach. The Reverend Mother doesn't deny this, but she also acknowledges that they're about to go into a lot of danger. When she tells her this, she says, "Our plans are measured in centuries. We have other prospects if he, Paul, fails his promise." So if we remember, the Bene Gesserit have been working in the shadows over centuries trying to bring about the Kwisatz Haderach, which is supposed to be this figure that can bridge space and time, this really powerful figure. But they want it to be somebody that they can control. Fade Rautha is another Kwisatz Haderach prospect. So Lady Fenring goes to sort of monitor him and make sure that everything is going well, since they think Paul is dead. So over here on House Atreides, of course, Paul and Jessica are not dead. Everyone thinks they are. After the Battle of Arrakeen, Paul and his mother, they escaped into the desert, they joined the Fremen. They're kind of reckoning with this religion. The Fremen believe Paul might be their Messiah, which obviously grants him a lot of power. It's also good to remember that Paul, his training has given him the ability to have visions that sometimes predict the future, but right now they're kind of vague and they don't always come true. However, once on Arrakis, exposure to the spice helps make these visions more clear. So both Paul and Jessica recognize that this religion of the Fremen has actually been planted by the Bene Gesserit centuries ago. The idea behind that is being that when the Bene Gesserit bring about their Kwisatz Haderach, whole civilizations will view that person as a religious figure. So Paul and Jessica know that if Paul is able to convert the Fremen and really step into that role of the Lisan al-Gaib, he'll have a massive power behind him that would allow him to strike back at the Harkonnens. Real quickly covering kind of the two camps of Fremen that exist, we have people like Stilgar. He's a respected leader and warrior and a staunch believer in the Lisan al-Gaib. So when Paul is able to do things that other off-worlders would not be able to do, like when he beats Jamis in a duel at the end of Part 1, it's a fulfillment of prophecy, as it is written. We have Fremen that are more like Chani, who do not believe in the Lisan al-Gaib. Stilgar represents the bulk of the Fremen, especially millions of fundamentalist Fremens that live in the south. I think if you want to go into Part 2 totally blind and just experience it for yourself, this is where you want to stop. But if you've seen it already, and you're looking for some explanations of some things that happened, then we'll continue. Just to remember, we kind of already covered, but spice is the substance that grants longer life, it increases physical abilities, and most important to our story, it gives like a heightened awareness. It really expands your mind. Complicated process by which it's created, but to simplify it, we'll just say that it comes from the sandworms. Then we have this water of life ritual. And the water of life is kind of like an ultra spice. So when an infant sandworm is drowned in water, which is poisonous to them, the result is that it exhales this substance, this blue liquid. The idea here is that humans carry a biological imprint of all their ancestors. And to unlock those within ourselves, you just need this like awareness enhancing substance. The problem is taking it into your body would be lethal. It's basically a poison to humans. But the Bene Gesserit are trained to control their bodies at a microscopic level. The idea is that a Bene Gesserit sister would take this poison within themselves, and then on a microscopic level, they'd be changing that poison into an enhancing substance. So when Jessica performs this ritual, she nearly dies. She changes the poison in her body and then gains the memories of all those that came before her, including other Reverend Mothers. Jessica's fundamentally changed as a person because she's not just Jessica anymore. She has all these identities. And there's one wrinkle in this. Jessica did the ritual while pregnant. So her unborn child also unlocked genetic memory. That child is now fully aware and even talks to Jessica. It's kind of creepy. Later, of course, Paul goes through the same ritual, which allows him to fully step into his abilities. I think a helpful little breakdown, what exactly are those abilities? So generally in this presentation, I'm only including story elements and things from the book that are actually referenced in the movie and that are relevant, but here I think a little bit of context helps. It's not really mentioned in the movie, but Paul is also trained not just in Bene Gesserit abilities, but in Mentat abilities. If you remember this character from part 1, he's the Mentat for House Atreides. Mentats are just humans that have trained to basically human computers. So with the combination of Bene Gesserit abilities, Mentat training, and his genetic heritage, Paul already has like enhanced abilities. When Paul sees visions, they're not like mystical. He's calculating probabilities so as to essentially predict the future. This is why in part 1, Paul has visions where Chani kills him and where Jamis teaches him the ways of the desert. These were possible futures. Of course, it ends up being the opposite. As Paul spends time amongst the Fremen, consuming spice, those abilities continue to enhance. And when he takes the water of life, it goes to the max. Paul essentially gains prescience. The visions are clear now because he's computing outcomes at such a high rate that it's like he's seeing the future. So that kind of power, as you can imagine, is godlike, and it's terrifying. So the reason for Paul's brutal test at the hands of the Reverend Mother in part 1 is now clear. If a person with the potential for that kind of power weren't able to control themselves, they should be destroyed. One last little bit for this presentation is the Harkonnen heritage. We get a little bit of a twist in the movie that after taking the water of life, Paul and Jessica realize that the Baron is Jessica's father. But there's a little bit more to this than just being an ironic twist that Paul's now fighting his grandfather. Now we don't fully know how the book or how the movies are going to adapt this yet. I'm just going to point something out and let you kind of think about it. The water of life has unlocked genetic memories. That memory now includes the Harkonnens. Interesting. That's it for now. Please let me know if you have any other questions, and I hope this helps.